Hello to my new video. I'm very sorry, my English is not so good, so I had to write my thoughts down again. I don't know if you have seen my first video about the so-called dark matter, but it has a little mistake. I tried to explain these mass effects of dark matter with the overlapping of electromagnetic waves, so-called photons or quants. But this is a phenomenon that can't describe the formation of mass. So I had to think about this formation, but I think that I am on the right way to find a solution for the problem of dark matter. So there is a really intelligent and straight-talking expert, and his name is deGrasse Tyson. I hope my pronunciation is correct. He said in one description something really important for me. He said, dark matter is not even what we should call it, because that implies that it's matter. It implies that we know something that we actually don't. So a more precise labeling for it would be dark gravity. So what he means is, we know that there are discovered mass effects or gravity, but we don't know where it comes from. Nobody has an idea or a logical theory. But back to my finding that the overlapping of these waves of energy can't explain these mass effects. What do we know about electromagnetic waves, called photons or quants? First, they move with the speed of light. They have different frequencies, from gamma to infrared light. They have not a rest mass, but a tiny mass while they are moving because of their speed of light. They are influenced and they get distracted by gravitation. You can see this effect at the gravitation lenses in space. All these electromagnetic waves together in our whole universe can't build mass effects like dark matter because they have not enough energy to build it. Another effect of photons or quants is that gravitation can change the frequencies of these waves, and this is proved by the Pound and Repka experiment. And this is the moment where I had a brainstorm, if you call it like this. And I hope that Neil deGrasse Tyson tries to understand what I try to explain now. We know that photons can get distracted by gravitation. You can see this at the gravitation lenses in space. But distraction by gravitation leads always to an acceleration. That means the two gravitative working parts, the galaxy on one hand and the photon on the other hand, they interact by impulses, just like a Mars lander which is accelerated by a so-called swing-by maneuver if it's passing another planet on the way to Mars. The speed changes, but there's only one simple difference between the Mars lander and the photon. The photon, or the quant, can't go faster because it's moving with the maximum speed in our universe, the speed of light. So it can't be accelerated by gravity like the Mars lander. But something else must happen. And this is what Pound and Repka found out. Gravity rises or lowers the frequency of photons. When they move into the direction of a planet or its gravitation, the frequency rises. If the photons move into the other direction, the frequency decreases. But what is so special at this fact? So if you have a higher frequency, you have a higher impulsive force of this photon. And this means it has a higher energy level. And you can calculate this with simple physics. You have automatically a higher mass because of the higher energy. Bingo. This is what Pound and Repka found out, but they didn't notice that enormous fact. They measured that the frequency rises when they align the beam into the direction of gravity of our Earth. This experiment was made in the Jefferson Tower at the Harvard University in 1960. They measured the influence of gravity to the frequencies of electromagnetic beams, photons. But they combined that fact not to effects of the mass of these beams. Many physics always say light has no mass. It has a rest mass of 0. But I don't speak of a rest mass. I talk about the dynamic mass of billions and billions of photons radiated from billions of galaxies in our universe. And that means these photons have a mass while they are moving. If you see the Jefferson Tower at the Harvard University, it's 22.5 meters high, and you can detect a variation of the frequency. What effects has the gravitation to the photons on the way passing a galaxy? That means thousands of light years. The frequency must rise enormous, and that means the mass of these photons rises enormous. So this must be the reason for the dark matter, or if I use Neil deGrasse Tyson's description, dark gravity. But in the beginning I mentioned that photons and galaxies interact by impulses, just like a spacecraft that is accelerated by gravitation. We know now that the photons are not accelerated, but the frequency. So the energy level rises, so the mass rises. But if you see the spacecraft in that special maneuver called swing by, you can see that the direction of the spacecraft is very important. Very important because the speed can variate after the swing by. So you can see on the one hand the spacecraft is accelerated, but in this moment the past planet will be slowed down a little bit because of the so-called conservation of momentum. It's a balance between these two objects. Is the spacecraft slowed down, the planet will be accelerated minimal. So there's always a balance of impulses between them. Transferred to the photons, you can see that these billions of photons must have an influence to the galaxy by impulses. And these impulses and their mass rises in the surroundings of galaxies. So the force of these impulses rises. And if you see now that these impulses can dominate from one direction, these impulses can accelerate galaxies. Galaxies move because of these rising impulses. So this is possibly the logic explanation for the so-called dark energy. This dark energy is the reason for the expansion of our universe. It's all moved by impulses, and because of the gravitation, the dark matter or the mass effects result of the photons massified by gravitation. And now you also can understand why the so-called dark matter lies always around galaxies. The gravity of matter, normal matter, in these areas create additionally these mass effects by distraction of photons. So that's how dark gravity and dark energy can be explained in a logic way without finding a new matter. So thank you, and maybe I get a feedback. Bye.